that we shall overcome someday, y'all. Yeah, we shall. Yeah, we shall. Oh, we shall. This time around.
DC, November.
We shall overcome. Let's do that verse again. Yeah, now, from sickness, heartache, and pain, sunshine, the storm, the rain, in the midst of it all, though we stumble and fall, we shall rise again. Sometimes you feel despair, just know that God is still standing there, saying we shall overcome someday, y'all. Somebody sing, we shall overcome. Let it ring out that we shall overcome. Oh, we shall overcome someday. I know it gets hard sometimes. Yeah, I believe that we shall overcome someday, y'all.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Operation Reform of the Rainbow Bridge Coalition. Put your hands together. Today for the Freedom Harvest. We want to thank the pastor, Elder Eric Thomas, for hosting us today. We are rebuilding our support. God is faithful. So we need your support as we have all of these churches all around the city of Chicago, the greater Chicago area, who are hosting us indeed, because remember, we are a church-based organization, which leads me to the request for volunteers. This is a volunteer-driven organization. We have always had a small staff and a lot of volunteers, and we need you. We meet on Tuesday night, but you know what? Don't just wait for Tuesday. Come on Monday, come on Tuesday, come on Wednesday, come on Thursday, come on Friday, come on Saturday. We do work 24/7, 365. We try to rest on Sunday, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So we want you to call us throughout the week at 773-FREEDOM, 773-FREEDOM, and reach out to us and just come on over. Make Push your second home. Call us right now at 773-256-2775, 773-256-2775, because we need your contributions. Remember, freedom is not free. You cannot ride to freedom on Pharaoh's chariot. We have to pay for this movement ourselves. And guess what? I think we're worth it. Do we not? Or do you not feel that we're worth it? Are our children worth it? Are we worth it? Are our elders worth it? We are looking at what could be a general strike this week with our children, but also with the professionals who work for them. And we're looking at a mayor who's trying to reconcile all of these sides. We, as you said last week, Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, we don't have enemies. We have adversaries. And that's where we can grow up in our politics and understand that we don't have enemies. We have adversaries. We see other people do this all the time. They move from party to party, do they not? They move from place to place, but what does not move for them is principle. They take care of their community, and that's what we're going to do. Put your hands together, everybody. Oh, I can hear you a little bit louder than that. Reverend Jackson this week celebrated his 78th birthday, as you know. Amen. What a blessing, what a blessing, what a blessing. 78 years of life, more than 50 years of service, almost 60 years of service. And we're so blessed. They were in Atlanta. They had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful event in Atlanta. They've had a wonderful event in Los Angeles. And today he is in Augusta, Georgia. What is he doing? The great operatic icon, the great musical icon, Jessie Norman, is from Augusta, Georgia. And her funeral service is being held right now. And as she has joined the ancestors and left her voice to be with the ages, with all of us, give her a round of applause, everybody, for the great Jessie Norman. As we prepare to lay to rest Diane Carroll, yet another icon. But these women, we cannot mourn their deaths. We must celebrate their lives. They've done so much to make us see all that we are and the best that we should be. We want to
let everybody know that we want you to come here during the week. Reverend Jackson has a nationally syndicated radio show, Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. What are we going to be talking about? The impeachment inquiry and Ukraine. So get your iHeart app and go to at Patriot AM 1150, at Patriot AM 1150, or at Real Talk 910. At Real Talk 910, so you can listen to us live. But we also stream. We've got a whole lot of you joining us on Facebook on the Reverend Jesse Jackson Senior page. And so we want you to join us there tomorrow morning from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. And of course, on Mondays, we have Santita Jackson and Friends. Let's talk about it. We're going to be talking about Greenleaf, right? They're saying a whole lot this week. This is a great, great show. They're saying a lot about the state of our black families, and they're saying a lot about the state of our black church. Who owns them? Aha. We're going to talk about that. Doors open at 6, and of course, we will be coming up on Facebook Live on the Santita Jackson and Friends page at 6:45 p.m. And of course, you can join me on the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. I do morning drive from 6 to 8 a.m. I'm about to run out of breath. No, not I. On WCPT. WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Go to WCPT820.com and join me and meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page and WCPT 820. Everybody, we have got a fabulous team. You know what we do with music. Are we not the best at it? Come on, be honest. This black church has created a music that has set the world on fire. And so we are so blessed today to have Pastor Antonio Rockamore. And guess what? The Powerhouse Praise Team. Come on, put your hands together, everybody.
Come on, clap your hands like this, everybody. You can just clap. Come on. I made it out all right. I made it out all right. I made it out. I made it out all right. I made it out all right. I made it out. I made it out all right. I made it out all right. I made it out. I made it out all right. I made it out all right. Thank you. Thank you. You didn't leave me no forsake. You didn't leave me no forsake. Thank you. Thank you. You didn't let my enemies. You didn't let my enemies take me. I'm still in the I made it out all right. Put those hands like this, come on. I made it out. I made it out all right. I made it out all right. I made it out. I made it out all right. I made it out all right. Oh, I made it out. I made it out all right. I made it out all right. I did. I made it out. I made it out all right. I made it out all right. Thank you. Thank you. You didn't leave me nor forsake me. You didn't let my enemies take me. I'm still in the mud. I made it out all right. Clap your hands. Let's go to the fam. Come on. I made it out all right. I made it. I made it out all right. I made it. The devil thought he had me, but I made it. I made it out all right. Yeah. I made it out all right. You ought to be glad. You made it out all right. Put those hands up. Woo. I made it out all right. I made it. I made it out all right. I made it. I made it. I made it. Anybody know you made it? You ought to be glad. If you made it, clap your hand. If you made it, I made it. I made it. Through the storm, through the rain. Yahoo! We made it. We made it. You made it. Everybody clap your hands. If you glad you made it? Put those hands together. Come out. Yeah. Come on, house. I made it. I made it. I made it. I made it. It was rough. I made it. It was tough. I made it. But I made it. I made it. Yahoo! I made it. Yahoo! I made it. Yahoo! I made it. 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 If you're glad you made it, somebody say it. I made it.
Come on, put your hands together, everybody, for the Powerhouse Praise Team. Pastor Antonio Rockamore, come on, you can do better than that. What a blessing. Come on, I need some energy this morning. We got to have some energy. We've got these strikes happening all over the country. We've got people trying to get registered to vote while SCOTUS is trying to take the vote away from us. Don't you think that requires some energy? So come in here this morning and be excited that God got you up this morning to fight another day. Amen. That is what we do. We try to make, not try, we make Jesus' ministry real. Jesus was an activist, and he was killed by the state because he was fighting for you and me. And so we have to behave that way. We have to understand that we need energy. Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman used to tell us about zeal. You need to have zeal and energy in your life. Come on, I want some energy this morning. Come on now. You need to have some energy about this student loan debt. We have young people who are not marrying. We have young people who cannot finish school. We have young people who cannot buy houses. We have people who are going into bankruptcy. It's $1 trillion problem all around this country. We're the only major industrialized nation who has this problem, who enslaves people who want to get an education. So we're going to, yes, that's what it is. It's peonage. It's slavery. If you want to get an education, you must go into debt that you will never, ever get out of. Remember, our president, yes, he still is, Barack Obama and Mrs. Obama, they did not come out of student debt until he had gone to the U.S. Senate. He was almost president. They were in their mid-40s. What is that? What is that? So we are going to talk about that today. Are we bringing you up first? The Right Reverend Will Hall. Come on, Reverend Will Hall. Come on, everybody.
Oh, come on, y'all. Is it good to be alive? Come on, is it good to be alive? Another Saturday. Those of you that are watching us, wherever you're watching us, give us a call. The number's right there on your screen, 773-256-2775. Aren't we glad that our leader celebrated another birthday? Come on, wherever Reverend Jackson is, let him feel the energy and joy that we have. And we're excited. Again, next week you're going to hear more about it. We're going to celebrate him while he is alive. We are grateful that he still has strength in his body, and we're grateful that he's still fighting a good fight. And so one more time, put your hands together and celebrate 78 great years of our leader and our founder. This week, many are gathering at Howard to celebrate, to have fun doing homecoming. Our very own Teddy Gilmore, who's a FAMU alumni, they graduated years ago, celebrated last weekend. But it's nothing to celebrate when there's $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. Black folks are going to college and leaving on average with $78,000 worth of debt. You have young people here in Chicago who leave chasing a dream and have to fight to see whether or not they're going to A, get a degree, B, have a meal, C, keep a job, and D, become somebody in life. We are facing a crisis that, in my opinion, every candidate that's running for office needs to address it, and address it now. I said every candidate that's running for office needs to address it, and address it now. 65% of African American graduates are not paying back their student loans now. meaning that they are in default, and 88% are probably going to die in student loan debt. Let me say that again. 65% of black students that are graduating are not able to pay back their student loans, and 88% of them are likely to go to their graves in debt. Did you all know that $12,750 was the average student loan debt back in 1996? But 20 years later, not only has the interest rate risen, I said not only has the interest rate risen, but more and more black students are deciding not to go to school to get in debt. And so what we're saying is simply this: we just don't want the idea of student loan forgiveness, but we want student loan debt to be forgiven ASAP. I said we want student loan debt to be forgiven ASAP. Now, how can we get this done? Those of you that are watching us, no matter how young you are, no matter how wise you are, we are getting ready to organize a steering committee. Why are we organizing this steering committee? Because we believe that if we work together, we can get this done. If America can find $250 million to go to war, if America can find $250 million to fund the destruction that we do in other countries on a yearly basis, if America can find $1.7 trillion to build planes to drop bombs, we can surely find $1.5 trillion to forgive all of those who have the stress and the pressures. Nobody should have to decide whether or not they're going to eat or pay back student loan debt. No parent should have to decide, do I pay insurance bill or pay back my student loan debt? No parent should have to decide whether or not they're going to send their young person to a good school or pay back student loan debt. So those of you that are watching us, 773-256-2775, if you have debt, we are going to add up the debt and we're going to fight to make sure that we can get this done. And I leave you on this. This is the reason why we're grateful for Push Excel. $10 million in scholarships. I said $10 million in scholarships in the last 10 years. And we are grateful that Push Excel is doing it, but we're getting ready to excel to getting student loan debt forgiven. If you believe that, come on, put your hands together and everybody say, forgive the debt. Come on, say, forgive the debt. Say it like you mean it. Say, forgive the debt. ASAP.
Come on, everybody. You can do better than that. And we're going to, as we bring forward this beautiful young woman who is as brilliant as she is beautiful. Remember, this is an American dilemma. There's a book by Theodore Dreiser that came out many, many decades ago. It is white, it is black, it is yellow, it is red. Americans are suffering under the crushing weight of student loan debt. Of course, black people are the canaries in the mine. What happens to us first happens to everybody else later. So it is our fight. When we are on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson, on his nationally syndicated radio show, we've brought white students, we've brought Hispanic students, we've brought Arab students, we've brought Jewish students, we've brought black students, we've brought every kind of student who are saying we can't take it anymore. So this is your fight. Give Reverend Will Hall another round of applause. And let us bring forth the Vice President of Continuing Legal Education for the Cook County Bar Association. Come on, everybody, put your hands together for Attorney Natasha Jenkins.
Good morning. So when I left the South Side of Chicago back in 2003, I left with a dream in mind, and I left knowing that I stood on the shoulders of my ancestors and all of those who fought for me to get a good education and to be able to live and support myself and my family and to be able to come back here and invest in my community and to build generational wealth. I went to college and I learned and I read about Thurgood Marshall and Brown v. Board of Education, and I had a vision that I would come back here and I would be able to pour into my community and serve and not have the burden of debt chasing me down. $1.5 trillion of student loan debt is what Americans carry. 2/3 of that debt is carried by women. African Americans make up the bulk of that debt. How did that happen? What's going on in our nation? How can we change it? What's going on in our community? How can we serve and build generational wealth and change the South Side of Chicago if when I get ready to go apply for a loan, or when my colleagues that I often mentor and help to facilitate building wealth, when they get ready to go buy a 3-flat building, you know what's looked at? Their student loan debt, not their credit card debt. I went to law school, and I'm grateful that I had a full ride for college. I'm grateful for that. Thank God for the Link Unlimited Scholarship Program here on the South Side of Chicago that prepared me for college and allowed me to get a merit-based scholarship. But when I came back to go to law school, I didn't realize that I would take on an amount of debt that may take most of my life to pay off. I owe over $350,000. Interest accrues daily. We need to change that. I don't think that was Thurgood Marshall's intention. So as a people, we need to work together. We need to figure out a way to strategize. We need to pay attention to who we're voting for and what they're talking about. And we need to not forget, when we send our babies away to college and we're expecting them to come back and do great things, we don't anticipate them coming back with this type of debt. It's enslavement all over again. It's a new form of it. So pay attention and let's forgive the debt.
Oh, I need some energy this morning. You come on, everybody. Can $350,000 worth of debt? You're sounding like President Obama and Mrs. Michelle Obama, Attorney Michelle Obama. That's what you're sounding like. But it's red, it's yellow, it's black, it's white. And if it's not student loan debt, it's your health care costs. We are really fighting. That's why we need you to call us at 773-256-2775. We need your support. Reverend Jackson has said historically, you cannot ride to freedom on Pharaoh's chariot. No one is going to pay. The slave master is not going to pay you for your freedom. Are you kidding me? Now, at some point, we have to decide that we're worth it, that we're worth the investment in coming out of chattel slavery. Slavery, we thought that was over in 1865. We see that that is not true. So we need you to call us at 773-256-2775. We need your support at Rainbow Push. We need it, we need it, we need it, we need it. Help push as you need help from push. And so I want to bring to you someone whom we know and love, who wears so many hats. I don't know how she does it. She's been a civil rights attorney. She's been a human rights attorney. She's been an educator. She also worked for Reverend Willie Barrow. God bless you. We love Reverend Willie Barrow. How many remember Reverend Willie Barrow, that little warrior? But with all of these hats, she's also the head of Push Excel, and she finds time to be the pastor of the Fernwood United Methodist Church. We want you to meet her on Sunday mornings. She wants to talk to us about a promise made and a promise kept. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, when she was a candidate, said, I am going to put more transparency in our government. And she has released the files on a case that has shaken the world, the murder of a child, Laquan McDonald. And so we're going to get a report from our very own, the Reverend Attorney, Jeanette Wilson. Come on, give us some energy, everybody.
Good morning, Rainbow Push family. I I am excited. We have 2 young people who are forming a committee to deal with this student loan debt. We had one many years ago. It is out of control at this point. We want young people who are in debt, those of you who still don't have a job but you're in student loan debt but you have a degree, you need to meet Reverend Will Hall at Push this week. Call our office right now, 773-256-2700, so that you can become a part of that committee, that coalition. Those of you who are watching us, go to rainbowpush.org and let us know that you're out there. We want to connect to any students across this nation. If you're in student loan debt, you need to contact Push right now. The other thing is this whole Laquan McDonald case. The Inspector General issued a 6,000-page report analyzing what we already knew. There was a cover-up from the shooting of Laquan McDonald, who was a 17-year-old ward of the state. He was a ward of the state who happened to be on the street walking while black, and there were several police officers on the scene. I sat through almost every day of the trial, and I will tell you, the evidence indicated there was a cover-up. We know that the cover-up did not just end and begin with the police officers on the scene, but the Inspector General showed us in these several thousand pieces of paper, his investigation verified that the police falsified reports for each other, failed to document either audibly or visually what happened on the scene that night. And in addition to that, there was a withholding of the videos that did exist, and there was a tampering with the videos that did exist. There was leadership in the police department that aided in verifying falsified reports. And so this Van Dyke man who did the shooting was not even the one assigned to the scene. He decided to go. He intended to commit murder of this innocent, young ward of the state. Laquan McDonald had done nothing wrong. There's no evidence to show that he was in the process or had been in the process of committing a crime. The IG's report will reveal that all of his interactions with other people that night were non-threatening, non-violent, and therefore there was no justification for the action of Van Dyke. The IG recommended termination of several other police officers. Only half of them were fired. The others were reassigned to different duties. And so they still were getting police pensions, police income. What does this say to us? As we elect mayors and elect state representatives and state senators, we must be mindful of the injustices in the criminal justice system. When we look at voting for aldermen in these cities or city council members, do know that they approve payments for, in this instance, they paid the family of Laquan money for the police misconduct. That was approved without them ever seeing an IG's report, without them ever viewing a video. It was on recommendation of the Corporation Council. Why is this important? Because Corporation Council is appointed by the mayor. The chief of police, appointed by the mayor. And so you have all of these layers in the criminal justice system that have to be addressed. And so when we tell you to register and vote, it's not for somebody that died only. It is for your life today. It's not for 30 years or 50 years or 100 years ago. You are voting for your present viability. When you vote now, you have to think about these people who are running for president. They will appoint the next attorney general. They will appoint a cabinet that will have tremendous impact on immigration, criminal justice. Think about the difference between this attorney general and the one we had when President Barack Obama was president. We had a whole different kind of criminal justice fever. We had a whole different type of focus on justice. Under the Obama administration, our attorney general then was able to do an investigation in the city of Chicago and an investigation of our police misconduct. I guarantee you that will not happen under this administration. So 2020 matters now. Voting in 2020 makes a big difference. It's such a big deal that when you look at what's happening in Tennessee, Dr. Yeary, who's going to talk about equity and all of that, the fact is the NAACP, like Rainbow Push, has a voter registration campaign where we send people out to register unregistered voters. Well, they tried to do that in Tennessee. They had a law that prohibits you from registering people unless you pre-register with the state, and you then, if you fail to submit complete applications, you can be fined up to $10,000. This is for voluntary voter registration. Well, fortunately, the Lawyers Committee represented the NAACP, and they have won a preliminary injunction prohibiting the state from enforcing what we believe is an unconstitutional law against the NAACP in Tennessee. Well, all across the country, they are organizing voter suppression tactics to keep us from voting. Well, if anybody wants to keep me from doing something that bad, I want to respond, and I want to register. I want to vote. I want to march to the polls. Every young person must begin to get energized. Every senior, you better vote for Medicare. Everyone who is on public aid, you better vote for Medicaid. They're trying to take it back. Everybody who has an immigrant in your family, you better vote so that you're not left at the border. Voting matters, and we're going to be going across the nation. Oh, I forgot, and I got to sit down. Reverend Jackson was just in Georgia talking about registering and voting. He's in South Carolina on his way there tonight. Tomorrow he will be honored by the NAACP. He's got one major message. We must vote and turn out in numbers like never before. Our presence at the polls will matter. Thank you so much.
Come on, put your hands together for Reverend Jeanette Wilson. I want us to acknowledge one of our great pastors. He has served our city and our nation as a first responder, firefighter, but he is also saving not just bodies, but saving souls. And he's going to be our host next week, Bishop Jerry Jones, right at 107th and Vincent Apostolic Church Assembly. Come on, put your hands together. Come on, everybody, give it some love. You're not welcoming a stranger. Oh my goodness, we've been telling you that this is a volunteer-driven organization, and no one stands taller in that forest than this man, Judge Stanley Hill, who gives of himself. That's right, give him some love. We thank you. I thought he was retired, and then I found out he wasn't. I said, oh, but that's what we do. That's what we do at Operation Breadbasket, Operation Push, Rainbow Push. We volunteer because we know that is what we've got to do. And so he works with our children, all of our children. Remember, this is the rainbow. Man has a dividing line, not God. And so we are so grateful to have this young lady. We want you to give her some love and encouragement. This sixth grader, this is our baby here, Liana Kokar. Come on, everybody, from the Barbara Rose Elementary School.
I will be reciting a speech called The Girl Who Silenced the United Nations for 5 minutes. I am here fighting for my future. Losing my future is not like losing an election. I am here to speak for all generations to come. I am here to speak on behalf of the starving children around the world whose cries go unheard. I am here to speak for all the animals dying across this planet because they have nowhere left to go. I cannot afford to not be heard. I am afraid to go out in the sun now because of the holes in the ozone layer. I am afraid to breathe the air because I don't know what chemicals are in it. All of this is happening before our eyes, and we act as if we have all the time we want and all the solutions. I am only a child, and I don't have all the solutions, but I want you to realize, neither do you. You don't know how to fix the holes in the ozone layer. You can't bring back an animal now extinct, and you can't bring back forests that once grew where there is now a desert. Everyone here is a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, an aunt, and uncle, and all of you are somebody's child. I am only a child, and I know that if all the money spent on war was spent on ending poverty and finding environmental answers, what a wonderful place this earth would be. At school, even in kindergarten, you teach us to behave in the world, to be respectful, responsible, to share, not be greedy. Then why do you go out into the world and do the things you tell us not to do? Don't forget while you're attending all of these conferences who you're doing this for. We are your own children, and you are deciding what kind of world we will grow up in. I would like to wish Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. a happy birthday and to thank Push and Greatest Harvest Church for allowing me to speak today.
Come on. Let's put your hands together for one of our young people. This is our future. Amen. That's right.
Come on, let's sing it. Y'all know the anthem here. Oh, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. I may be down, but not destroyed. Empty, but not void, 'cause I am somebody. Oh, somebody. Oh, I am somebody. At the end of this day, they can try to walk away, but I am somebody. Come on. Oh, I am. Look at your neighbor, say I am. Hey, at the end of this day, they can try to walk away, but you say I am. Hey, I am. Oh, I am. Hey, at the end of this day, they can try to walk away, but I am somebody. I am. Say I am somebody.
Come on, let's celebrate the fact that we are somebody. We affirm our right to human dignity. We claim our space to fulfill our dreams and explore our possibilities. We don't ask permission to be who God has created us to be, because Reverend has given us a declaration. When society refuses to acknowledge and people refuse to affirm, we can stand up straight with our shoulders square and go anywhere in the world and just state 3 words that affirm that we have no shame about who we are. Those 3 words mean something. Mean something to everybody, not just people of color, not just the oppressed, not just the downtrodden, but even those who are our adversaries. Tell your neighbor, I am somebody. Just in case you told the wrong neighbor this morning, tell your other neighbor, I am somebody. And now that the somebodies have made it to this space where they say the Spirit of God dwells and will even meet us here, we gather at this hour to be informed and inspired. Because when we leave out these doors,
or if you live somewhere in our viewing audience where the hostility is high, your declaration will not be enough. There are forces at play that try to remind us every day that our somebodyness does not matter. And so it's important that we heed Reverend's words over the years, and we follow his example that he continues to set for us this day, that there's still more justice work to be done. And so I just want to talk to you for a few moments this morning on this just simple tag: I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere. In Proverbs chapter 3, there are 2 verses that I lift up. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again tomorrow, I will give it, when you have it with you. Say this with me: I ain't going nowhere. This week we celebrated Reverend's birthday. As I was fact-checking what happened on October 8th throughout history, there was a significant milestone this week, even as we were celebrating Reverend's 78th birthday, that didn't get much media attention. You see, it was on October 8th, 1964, 55 years ago, that the Civil Rights Act was signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson. There wasn't much conversation, if any, about the significance of that milestone. For whatever reason, the America of 2019 seems to behave much more like the America of 1819. We've lost our ability to appreciate that the progress that we claim to have made has not come just by accident, it has come by demand. And the fact of the matter is there are still more demands to be made, because as you've heard this morning, there are still conditions that must be changed. When we consider the fact that there's still police brutality, that policing still takes on the form of its original intent, protecting elite property and making sure that certain people stayed in certain places. When you can travel to urban areas across the country and find that there are issues with constitutional policing, treating folks as they have the right to be, to move, and to behave consistent with their rights under the Constitution. We don't want to talk about the Constitution, especially in this day and time, because clearly the current administration has not read it, much less understand it. The challenge that we have is not only do we have unconstitutional policing, we have unconstitutional and immoral policies. Dr. King said that 3 great evils of the world are war, poverty, and racism. And the truth of the matter is that they all overlap when we look at the realities of urban policy across the country. This week we were with Reverend, and he had a town hall conversation, a fireside chat just on yesterday with the president of SunTrust Bank. And in that conversation, Bill Rogers, the president of SunTrust Bank, said that the upward mobility in Atlanta for a person born in poverty today, meaning the ability to break the cycle of poverty for someone born in Atlanta, Georgia. Y'all know Black Mecca, where all of our cousins have moved. The upward mobility for a poor person in Atlanta today is 5%. That means that it is more likely that your condition at birth is going to be your condition at death. Here's the problem. Reverend has been talking about economic justice his entire career. And yet we still have limited opportunity to move up and to break the cycle. There was a Forbes article earlier this week that talked about how after the tax cuts, 400 families, not 400 companies, 400 families control more wealth in this country than the bottom 50%. The insane, distorted presence of economic injustice continues to plague us to this day. And here's what happens when you impose poor conditions on people who have great possibilities. You tend to police poor areas of the city differently than you do affluent areas. Y'all don't have to talk back to me. I know it is the case. That's why when you go into certain affluent areas, affluent as in they don't always look like you, when they see you coming, they begin to wonder why you there in the first place. And so the notion of racial profiling and spatial limitation is not something that is by accident, it is by design. And then when we talk about education itself, we know that the Supreme Court went on the record in the Rodriguez case and said, you do not have a constitutional right to an education. That then means that education as a resource is a resource that's tied to access and interests. Access and interest. Who benefits from limiting the access to education and whose interests are served? Because here's what we know, that those who are able to get an education are able to break the cycle of poverty and then put their children in a better position so that then you begin to move forward and upward on the social ladder. The problem is here's the dilemma. When I taught at Northern Illinois University several years ago, I served on the provost retention committee, and we did a study about why we were losing so many students after the first year of college. The assumption was that the black kids were coming in underprepared, and so college classes were actually too hard for them, and it was leading to a higher attrition rate. When we studied the numbers, here's what we found. Give or take a percentage or two across all racial and ethnic categories, the first year dropout rate was about the same. And when we studied, it had nothing to do with the grades, because when we looked at the grades of those who were not able to continue their enrollment, their grades were not such that they would have been on academic probation. The reason they could not go to school after the first year of college is because they had an encumbrance on their financial record, i.e. a bill that could not be paid, because financial aid by its formula gives fewer dollars the first and second year of college and more to get you to completion. So when the system is already stacked against you, and then you have limited access to parents being able to take on some of the debt to be able to send their kids to school, we now have a formula for a disaster that says somehow or other an entire generation of people are going to be stuck with no mobility. But here's what we know. If the government can give tax cuts, if the government can give select sole source contracts, if the government can cut side deals at night and give bad deals by day, we know we have the right and the opportunity and the responsibility to show up in the face of the government and demand what is right. Here's what we have to understand, that part of this problem of moving forward is that we only seem to show up when it's election time. I was on a town hall back in Baltimore earlier this week, and there was a conversation about what was happening in policy. And there was a bit of communal outrage that some of the elected officials had not come out to the community meeting. And very often you're right to be uptight when they don't show up. But here's what I know. They have a job where they have to show up too. So if you don't come to me, tell your neighbor, I will come to you. And the way we come to you is we're going to start showing up at the open session city council meetings. We're going to start showing up at the open sessions of the governmental discussions. We're going to start showing up. And oh, by the way, we're not just showing up to be seen. Tell your neighbor, I'm showing up to talk. I got something to say. And what I have to say is that until you do right by the needs of all of the people, you're going to have a problem. And the problem is we must continue to agitate until the government does right by way of passing laws and legislating. Here's what Frederick Douglass says. He reminds us that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. Now, you all know how demands work. Demands usually come without the usual courtesy of saying, please. I ain't getting no help here. The government keeps wanting us to say please as if we all beg them for what is ours. And I'm not saying we have to be disrespectful. I just want to make sure that we understand that we have a right to make a demand, because the text says that there's an obligation of the government to do good and give the people what is their due. It is not that somehow or other you're doing a favor to develop all of the neighborhoods of the city. That's your responsibility. That's not something that you just do to give us a favor for us. It's not that you educate some kids and not educate other kids. That's not doing us a favor. That's your job. It is not sufficient to have kids going to school traumatized and then expecting them to have to be educated. You want me to learn, but I got to cross war zones to get to the classroom, and then I got to count on the food being there when I get to the school, because there ain't no food back at home. I don't know who I'm talking to, but at the end of the day, when in Chicago and cities across the country, there are students who don't have a place to lay their head at night, and you want them to go get an education in the day. I'm not asking your permission. Tell your neighbor, I ain't saying please. It's your duty, and when it's your duty, it means that I know you owe it to me, and until you give it to me, I ain't going nowhere. And so here's what they expect you to do. They expect you to give them some pause, some respite, some temporary relief from having to give you what you demand in the moment. And they say, all right, we'll get around to you a little bit later. And we see what has happened by waiting for what is the people's right. The affluent are becoming richer, the poor are becoming poorer, and we who are at the bottom continue to be stuck. But here's what I want to leave with you, because we got to go on, because we got to show up at the place where the people gonna be, because we ain't going nowhere. Rule number one of upward mobility is resistance. Just because you got me down don't mean you gonna keep me down. Now, I don't know what I got to do. I know at some point I got to decide that I'm going to resist the effort that you're putting behind keeping me in a place that I don't belong. But resistance is the first rule of overcoming the difficulties of our circumstances. The second is resilience. Say resilience. There's more in us. The fact of the matter is when we look at our history and consider how far we've come, this is not the first time that we've had to face difficult circumstances. This is not the first time that we've had to make a demand of government. This is not the first time that we've had to organize and mobilize to be able to get what is ours to enjoy. And so what we have to do is go back and remember our story about how we got here 1619 to 2019. And even about 100 years before that. It is the indication that we have had with us the entire time a long litany of folks who are in our genetic ancestral DNA, and their blood courses our veins. And it says we dare not we deserve. There are too many that we cannot name who are now up in the balcony of heaven watching us in this moment and waiting to see what we're going to do. Tell your neighbor, first step is resistance. Second step is resilience. But the third ingredient is the one that matters. And since we're in church and Santita has already said that we're a faith-based driven organization, you can have resistance and you can have resilience, but the thing that's going to make a difference is your reliance. And here's what I want to talk to you about reliance. Tell your neighbor, we've come this far. by faith. And if faith has brought us this far, faith is going to take us forward. God has been too good, a very present help in time of trouble, for us to decide that God does not have the power to be able to help us overcome what it is that we're going through. I feel my help coming. Come on, organist, and help me right here. Our God is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that we can ask or imagine. Can I get a witness here? Somebody in here knows that he'll make a way out of no way. Somebody in here knows that he'll keep the lights on when you don't have money to pay the bill. Somebody in here knows that even when you're not happy, he'll put joy in your heart, praise on your lips, clapping in your hands, hope on your heart, and you'll keep pressing because you'll tell your neighbor, I ain't going nowhere. And one last thing as I go to my seat, here's why you ought not go anywhere. Because when they tried to stop the Jesus movement, they tried him on Thursday night, and then they took him into custody on Friday morning. They convicted him late Friday morning. They hung him at the noonday hour, and then he hung his head and died. Somebody ought to say, he talking to me. He stayed on the cross, and they put him in the tomb, and he stayed in the tomb all night Friday. Y'all better act like we up in church here. He stayed there all day Saturday. But tell your neighbor early Sunday morning, tell your neighbor, I've got resilience because my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but I wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. All of the ground, all of the ground, all of the ground.
Come on, give me a little volume on here. Clap your hands, everybody, come on. After that message, let's have a little church. Come on, everybody. Come on in the room. Jesus. Give me a little more in the monitors. For he yes, sir. Hey, come on in the room. How many got a prayer room? Where you at? Woo. And he right. For he keeps. Come on in the prayer. Yes, sir. Y'all play it one time. Clap your hands. Come on. If you got a prayer room, clap your hands. Ah! Let's do it again. Come on in the room. And he, for he keeps. Come on in the good God Almighty. You need a prayer room. 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 I got on my knees. Talk to the Lord. I told the Lord, I need you. Need you right now. Lord, I need you. Lord, I need you. right now. Jesus. Yes, sir. Jesus. 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 You need to call that name. 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 There's power in that name. Power in that name. Power in that name. Yeah. Power in that name. Power in that name. Power in that name. Power in that name. Yeah. Yeah. Woo. Yeah. You need a prayer room. You need a prayer room. You need a prayer room. We gotta go. Just keep on. He'll hear your cry. The Lord and His word. I know it's Saturday, but we're gonna jump for y'all. Jump up. Yes, sir. Take that thing up. Come on. Just keep on praying. Don't you stop praying. Don't you give up. The Lord hear your prayer. The Lord hear your prayer. Keep on praying. He'll answer you. We love y'all. Clap your hands. We love y'all. God bless you. Just keep on praying. Change is coming. I say change is coming. Don't you stop praying. Don't you stop believing. Keep on praying. I'm a living witness. He'll answer you. God bless y'all. Clap your hands. God bless you.
That's Reverend Rockamore. I'm going to his church. It's at 6 p.m. You ought to go. Yeah, look, I'm going to Reverend Rockamore's church. Y'all need to join me.
I don't know what's happening. No. Don't leave. John Rogers, let's give him some love. We're always so glad to see John Rogers. Please don't leave. You know, when I thought of you, when I saw you, Pastor Rockamore, and this powerhouse praise team, give them some love, everybody. For those of us who go back far enough to remember, this reminds me, Bathsheba, of Breadbasket and Operation Push and Rainbow Push. This is what got us through. And so I want us to remember, and maybe that's the benefit of history. It's not a faith-based organization. We're a church-based organization. Reverend Jackson said that. Because faith is one thing. Church is an organization. And church has rules. And church has a head. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, in his first it is important for us to remember that he was first a minister of the gospel. Andrew Young, before he was an ambassador and a congressman and all of these things, he's a minister of the gospel. Reverend James Bevel, that brilliant, brilliant mind, minister of the gospel. Calvin Morris, he and my father met when they were in college. They became ministers of the gospel. Reverend went to the university. Reverend was brought up here by the Rockefeller Foundation to go to school at the University of Chicago, not for law. He turned down Duke Law School. Reverend Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor said to him, you know what, son, I think the ministry is for you. There's something that God needs you to do. And so I just felt moved to come here as I listened to you, Pastor Rockamore, and the Powerhouse Praise team. Cannonball Adderley did an album with us in 1969, I believe it was. And when we were at the Capitol Theater, I was a baby then, but I do remember. And, well, that's not to date myself. It is what it is. I praise God that I was able to live through all of that. That having been said, he said in his introductory remarks, because people like him, these great jazz musicians, these great R&B musicians, they had been pushed out of the church because they were singing the devil's music, even though they deeply believed in God. And he said, you know, this is the first time I felt welcome in the church since I was pushed out of the church. And Cannonball Adderley was from a family of educators. It was devastating for him, with all of his education, with all of their music education, for him to be pushed out of the church. And he said, but you know, Breadbasket is my church, and Reverend Jackson is my pastor. And so I'm hoping that as we continue to evolve as an organization, we will evolve back into that, putting God first. When you walk in the door of Push, I hope that you feel welcomed as you do in a church. I hope that you know that as we host these volunteer sessions on Tuesday, that Push is your home every day. There's something that we need you to help us do every day. We're going to have to figure out what to do with our children if the strike happens on Thursday. Wherever you are on it, they're our children. Wherever you are on it, they're the people who we love who take care of our children every day. You said it so brilliantly, so prophetically last week, Reverend Dr. Yeary. We may be adversaries, but we're not enemies. And that's something that we learn where? In the church. And we learn it in Push and Rainbow Push because Reverend still has the spirit and the calling of ministry. But that's all that I wanted to say as I cede the mic back to you, the pastor of the Fernwood United Methodist Church. What is the address of your church? Reverend? Reverend? Pastor? Pastor?
41st and King Drive. We just have an hour service, but what I wanted to say, I was fortunate to spend Reverend's birthday with him, his actual birthday. You know, most of us, when we have our birthdays, we think of things we want. That's the only day that's yours. And so, Reverend, we were trying to figure out, we got to get him something to eat. We got to get him a cake. He said, I want to go to the homeless shelter. I want to go to the jail and have lunch in the Cook County Jail. And we were like, oh, my God. I don't like being locked up. I mean, I get claustrophobic. And, you know, when one door closes, before you can go to the next door, it's very challenging. And to have lunch in county jail, you have to eat where they live. So you're in a very confined space with a few people. And to think of, so when Santita says Reverend is a pastor, he really is in the tradition of Jesus. Nobody but Jesus would say, I'm going to celebrate my birthday having lunch at Cook County Jail. And what was even worse, one of the guys said, get him his lunch. So then they brought the little lunch. And so the guy said, now, Reverend, don't eat that bologna. He said, you just can't digest that. And he said, now, the best thing in there is the cheese. And it was falling apart, but it doesn't melt. And so, you know, Reverend was seriously trying to eat with them. He did eat the cheese and that little funny-looking bread. And it made me realize we can't let people who not even found guilty, Dr. Yeary, they just awaiting trial. And they can't get out because they can't afford bond. And they're giving them absolute garbage. I looked at the bologna. I couldn't figure out what it was. It just round, and it looked thick. And Reverend was looking, because he likes bologna. But so what I'm saying is, he took me to a whole nother place of what we must do. When he keeps saying we got to get them out while they're waiting trial, they should be out, John Rogers, on bond. They don't need to be locked up in there eating that garbage. And then we go to a homeless assessment center for families, and we saw families with little babies who have no place to stay. And certainly the children don't realize what's going on. So he spent his actual birthday in a Jesus Christ movement manner, because he's going to be talking about the homeless. He's going to be talking about pretrial detention across the nation. Homeless people from Los Angeles, Baltimore to New York, with Chicago in the middle, all across in those hot states there on the street, even the more. And so when I ask you for money, I'm looking at a man who never asked for anything for himself. He asked for membership so that he can keep the organization going, so he can spend his birthday in pretrial detention and at a homeless assessment center. And so when you think about what you have to give today, I want you to think about where did you spend your last birthday? And what did you ask for? You can't give Reverend, he never asked for rings, and you never see him with a lot of jewelry on. He's not riding in a Rolls. He merely asked you to do memberships. And so I'd like for you, those of you who can, when he asks for $100 next week when he'll be here to celebrate his birthday at Bishop Jones's, I want you to give $100 today and next week so that Reverend will see that you care about this movement. I want you to commit to organizing memberships from your churches and from your organizations. He wants 1,000 churches, Bishop, that will give 100 memberships to push. And so we're kicking it off at your church. My goal, our goal as a staff, is 780 new memberships next Saturday. But today I need several of you to give at least $100 or more to this offering. We don't have a lot of people, but we got a lot of in you, such as you have, such as God has blessed you with. I know in the church we say 10%. So if you got $100 this week, if you could just give 10, that'll be great. Thank you, John Rogers. He gives his amount, and he doesn't like for us to announce it. It's well over $100. He makes sure that a broadcast a month he supports. We got Teddy Gilmore. He's getting ready to chair Santita HBCU College Tour. And we thank God for him. I won't call your name. Just come on, bring what you have. Those who are in the oratorical, we want the parents, 100 oratorical parents to organize and get memberships for the children. They will remember being a member of this organization. Same thing, Pam. All of our STEM students want all of them to be members of Rainbow Push. It's $15 for students, $35 for adults. If you're already a member, pay a membership for a child. Pay a membership for a senior that can't get out. Bathsheba brings her godmother's contribution every week. Y'all give us some giving music, because, they got to move. If you need to swipe, you got your credit card swipe. Check should be made payable to Rainbow Push. Thank you, Tracy. All the way here from D.C. Those who have something to give, you don't have $100. You may have $25, you may have $10, you may have $1. Whatever you have to give, if you will stand, go to the aisle closest to you and give right here or over here. Reverend Rockamore sang and gave. We just want y'all to give him a big hand. He gave us a song and gave us a contribution.
been me outdoors with no food and no clothes, or just alone without a friend, just another number with a tragic end. But you didn't see fit to let none of these things be. Every day by your power, you keep on keeping me. And I want to say, yeah, it could have been me outdoors with no food and no clothes, or just alone without a friend, just another number with a tragic end. You didn't see fit to let none of these things be. Every day by your power, keep on keeping me. And I want to say, yeah, I want to say, yes, I want to say, I want to thank you for your love. Thank you for power. Thank you for protection every hour. I want to thank you for so much grace. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you. Gotta say thank you. Could have been dead, sleeping in my grave, but you made old death, made him behave. Could have been lost
Are there any
deep
other?
in sin. No place within. I want to say thank you for waking me up
There's
this
still
morning, starting me on my way. Gotta say thank you. Thank you for activity of my limbs. I gotta say thank you. I must say thank you. I gotta say thank you.
As we get ready to leave this place, want to make sure that everybody's had an opportunity. Oh, yeah, that's a good place. Stay right there. Thank you, Lord. If there's anybody else that wants to contribute today, we want to make sure you have that opportunity before we leave. I want to do an unscientific poll just before we leave. Just stay there. No, don't come out of it. We going out on that. We might as well do like we do on Sunday morning. Unscientific poll. Has God been good to anybody in here? Just unscientific poll. Just raise your hand. Second question of an unscientific poll. Has God been better to you than you deserve? Raise your hand. Then just go on and say, thank you, Lord. Come on, y'all, just hit it a little bit. Thank you, Lord. Can we stand all across the sanctuary? We want to thank Pastor Rocky Moore and this wonderfully powerful ensemble of angelic voices. Can they come back? They ought to come back, right? We ought to do this again. Reach out and take your neighbor by the hand. It's a sign of commitment that we're better together than we are apart. During the course of this week, we'll keep Reverend in our prayers as he's traveling today and tomorrow. We look forward to seeing him on his return and continuing this important work of justice to all of you who are soldiers on the battlefield of that which is right in the world. Remember, you're not asking permission. Power concedes nothing without a demand. But if you resist, if you bounce back and you rely on the strength of God, we're going to be all right. So go on out there into that world and make a difference. And when we gather together again, we will lift our voices and tell God thank you, because God has been good to us. Now, God, we thank you for what we have heard and felt, experienced, and encountered. We recognize that there is no God like our God, and we thank you for being our God. Now, God, I thank you for my neighbors. Thank you for their testimony, their strength, their resilience. Thank you for their possibilities and their gifts. And as we go forth from this place, God, we thank you for the opportunity to use our gifts, our talents, our voices, and our minds to change the world. Now we go forth under the covering of your Spirit, walking by the power of your grace, and believing that the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will keep us until we gather together again. Now may grace, peace, and power go with you this day and forevermore. Those who are blessed by God say together, thank you and amen.